Well, we have just about 10:31 Eastern time, so let's get started because we have a very rich, full, at least an hour ahead of us. And this is Dean Smith from HPRCT. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to join today in this ongoing monthly series. And just a quick note, if you haven't seen already, we have our second virtual conference scheduled for June 22nd to the 24th. So if you haven't seen that on our website, we'll have a great lineup then. Please take a look and we'll send you more reminders about that. But today, thrilled to have Steve Prevette with us. And Steve is a certified quality engineer and an expert in statistical process control and all things measurement and trending. And so Steve, with that, I would love to turn it over to you. You can give everybody a few words about your background, what you're bringing to us today, as we talk about how we apply statistical process control and metrics to real world problems.
Well, very good. And I appreciate everybody being here. My father's here. Great friendly audience here. So we're going to have a little fun over the next hour. I am right now with Savannah River National Laboratory. I also do teach for Southern Illinois University at Carbondale. I have a lot of students, and hopefully if this becomes a recording, I'll make my students watch it. But we're going to go beyond the beads. My father actually mentioned Dr. Deming and the red bead experiment, and I recorded with a gentleman named Steve Byers a red bead experiment at Hanford, more years ago than I want to remember. You'll compare young me to me on the video, I'm sure. But we're going to have a little fun over the next hour. So this is very interactive. I'll say audience participation is mandatory. We will have opportunities to break into small groups for discussions. We'll ask for you guys to chime in on chat and maybe even turn the audio over to you to make comments. So don't be afraid to chime in. The HPRCT folks will be watching to see if anybody chimes in. There is a link. Actually, all you have to do is Google Prevette, P-R-E-V-E-T-T-E, and red beads, and you'll find a YouTube series of 6 videos. And that's what we extracted from that we did at the Hanford Department of Energy site. Then we're going to look at the whole experiment in a very compressed period of time. That video actually runs for about an hour. And I did do a red bead experiment back in Monterey, California for HPRCT's annual conference. So it's out there. But then we're going to go beyond the beads and say, well, how do we know what we know from the data? What does the data tell us? And how do we have an opportunity to find a path for success? And we'll also talk about leading indicators, about what's the effect of culture. There's some really interesting idiosyncrasies in this whole video about culture. And it was recorded, as I say, at Hanford. It's on YouTube. So this will be a interesting experience in trying to get this clip to play. And you guys let me know as it comes in. Okay, do you got, Dean, do you see now the red bead experiment?
Not yet, Steve.
Okay, so I got to stop share and bring that over then. So we will do that. That's what I was afraid of. There we go. Now do you see it?
See it.
Okay, so we're going to hit play.
Good morning. I'm Steve Prevette, your foreman. I'd like to welcome all you prospective employees as employees of the White Bead Production Corporation. We do have a new contract at Hanford to produce white beads for the Department of Energy. And as part of your orientation, I would like to introduce the president of the company, Mr. Stephen Byers.
Welcome, candidates. We look forward to completing our screening process and selecting a number of workers. As the foreman has mentioned, we do have a new contract that calls for increased production. We need new workers.
Educational requirements are minimal, and experience in pouring beads is not necessary. Now, there should be 6 people out there with willing worker number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 badges. One very excited willing worker there. I will point out our increased productivity poster. And if you spend your time talking, you are decreasing productivity. Next thing we must do is record our payroll. We are going to have the willing workers state their first name and spell it, and then I will repeat it to you, and you will record it on the sheet. Willing worker number 1, your first name.
Kurt, C-U-R-T.
Say that again.
Kurt, C-U-R-T.
C-U-R-T. Yes, now you may write it. Whaling worker number 2.
Marty, M-A-R-T-Y.
M-A-R-T-Y. Now my trouble worker here, number 3.
My name is Ed, E-D.
E-D. Don't get ahead of me. Now, procedure compliance is very important here, you understand. Don't get ahead of me.
Okay, now we'll get back to our PowerPoint and see what people have to think about our introduction to the company. All right, so we'll move on to the next slide. Now, at this point in time, does anybody have any comments about what they perceive just from that little snippet? And, you could tell it was pretty roughly edited. What's the culture of the company? What's your first impression of the White Bead Production Corporation? And what about Ed, ED? How would you feel if you were a worker? And what tone has been set?
Yeah, and anybody, just please feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself to jump in and give some feedback or chat into the chat box. So while we wait there we go. Cameron, what do you think? Oh, Cameron?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like the company has a bit of a submissive attitude expectation from the workers. And willingly or non-willingly, they have to comply with the instructions.
That's a good statement. Yeah, yes, that's definitely what we're trying to channel here. How would you feel if you were a worker, if you were lined up against the wall there?
Not very good, not very comfortable.
Not very comfortable.
Yep.
Do you think that I, as the foreman, will be receptive to any ideas you might have?
Based on the video, didn't seem like it. It's a unidirection instructions.
Right. Notice the state your first name and spell it. And what I always do during these red beads is inevitably the recorder, and this you see how old this is, they're writing on a view graph machine, will inevitably write their name before I repeat it. And then I can say, well, procedure compliance is mandatory.
Yep.
Yeah, and a couple of related comments in the chat box, Steve, that feedback from employees is a waste of time, that they're essentially human robots, and that production is number one. People are numbers, no talking, no feedback.
So think about, as we move forward, what do you think right now is going to be the outcome of this little experiment? Well, let's move on. So here's another clip, and I do want to point out, this is not humorous. We are at work. Let's get the clip going, and I've got to stop the share and flip over to, share screen, and there it is, I believe.
First time, we of course have a procedure to make our white beads.
Hold on. Are you hearing anything right now?
Yeah, we heard it perfectly, and then it stopped, so.
Oh, okay. There it is. I will restart it here. Okay, hold on. There's a restart.
And as part of doing it right the first time, we of course have a procedure to make our white beads. Now, the government wants white beads only, untouched by human hands. They want white beads. We don't know what they do with them, but they want white beads. So here is our finely engineered procedure. Now, this took many years to develop this procedure. Many very qualified professional engineers worked on this procedure. It is a beautiful procedure. It will be followed. Now, I will demonstrate. First, the procedure number is WBD-HT81-C, white bead generation. Required tools and materials. Paddle for retrieval of beads. We have a paddle. It has 50 holes in it. 5 rows of 10, 50. Your quota is 50. I don't see what's so funny. 50. This is not humorous. We are at work. Now you grasp, this is step 2, grasp the paddle by the handle. Ensure that the holes are orientated facing upwards. Now if you put it in upside down, then you don't get any beads. You don't get your 50. You get fired. Hold the holes the right way up. You rotate it in till the paddle is covered with beads. Very easy. Now to make sure you don't get any more than 50, you raise the paddle 4 inches above the bead box, and you tilt it exactly 47 degrees. We have a pay-for-performance contract. None of this cost plus mamby-pamby stuff. We get paid for our product. They've been setting aside some money for us, so we got to deliver white beads. So we will now start day number 1. Kurt, willing worker number 1, you've received your on-the-job training, right? Do you have any questions? Good. I'm glad to hear it. Come forward, do your first day's work. They're empty and you rotate in. Beads, there you go. The beads cover all the holes up 4 inches and 47 degrees. 47 degrees. That was only 2. 47 degrees. Okay, that's better. On to QA. We have a finely engineered procedure here.
Eight, dismissed.
8. This is the White Bead Company. You just made 8 defects that we don't get paid for. Okay, Mr. President, we completed the first days of work, and we unfortunately made 56 red beads in the first day.
Well, I have reviewed the results, and I must say that our customer will not be satisfied with this level of defects, and we do need to do better. We do recognize that it was just the first day of production with a new process. Would like to recognize, though, the workers who have performed better than the others. If you would send those 2 to my office, please.
Kurt and Sid, the president has beckoned. Please proceed to the president's office.
I'd like to congratulate both of you on your excellent performance. You're Kurt, you're Sid. Please keep up the good work. And in addition to the certificate, I'd like you to stop by the payroll office, pick up a little monetary reward. Please keep that to yourself, though. We don't need to discourage the rest of the workers.
All right. Oh, don't we love our president and everything here? Oh, yes. Back to our PowerPoint. Okay, this is not humorous. We're at work. Okay, so we showed Kurt doing his work, but actually all the rest of the 6 got to do their work. Kurt got 8 and Sid got 8, so they were the best workers. Oh, poor Ken here with 11. He did such a poor job. We put him on probation. Now, anybody want to jump in? You can talk about, the president's job, but what do you suppose Kurt and Sid did different to be the worker of the day?
And Cameron, you're unmuted again. What do you think?
Yeah, I think they were just lucky.
Okay, and yeah, and did you catch the don't tell anybody else you got that bonus? Yep. That actually happened to me on a job. I had a manager who was actually trying to fire me for insubordination, and that didn't go very well. Then he called me in his office and said, well, here's a bonus letter from the company, and I don't know why you got it, and you can't tell anybody you got the bonus. And that's what the letter actually said. You're only allowed to tell your lawyer and your spouse. So what's the value of a reward like that? Like what Sid and Kurt got?
Well, I mean, overall, seems like a pretty tunnel vision company. It's a little bit of a poisonous environment, and it's going to create some animosity among the workers. Another thing I caught is the very good work instruction, and nothing is going to change from that. So there is no creativity allowed, no feedback mechanism to improve the situation.
Oh, you're giving away the next video.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, no, it's perfect. You're making great predictions. I do want to, though, ask, do we have another person who wants to weigh in on this? Like, I do want to find out from somebody, what do they think of our president at this point?
Yeah, let's see if anybody else wants to unmute themselves and jump in. And I know James and Carla had, also observed about the just pure luck component of it.
Yes.
So there's Carla. Carla, what do you think?
Well, I think that the president now has put some undue pressure on those 2 because it's luck. And what's the likelihood they'll be able to continue to be the best performers?
Ah, good. And by the way, Carla and I are coworkers.
Ah.
And I'm turning over to Carla of the reins here. So I'm very glad to have her watching. Okay, well, I'm glad we got some people involved here. So let's move on here. This is I do make my SIUC students. I teach a course called Data Applications and Interpretation. And fortunately, all the objectives are all about understanding, not doing the analysis, but understand as a manager, how you use this data. This upcoming scene is my SIU students' absolute favorite. management has taken action. We'll be announcing a goal. So let's see what this clip brings us. Now I've got to do the quick stop share screen, and get over to
workforce. We realize that we have not been doing our part in trying to improve.
Sorry, I will be, okay, come on, there it is.
Did not provide you with a goal.
Restart it. My apologies.
Would like to announce that management has an aid for the workforce. We realize that we have not been doing our part in trying to improve production, even though we have provided an excellent quality program and the appropriate slogans. We did not provide you with a goal or an objective. You don't know what it is you're supposed to produce other than white beads. So we have come up with an objective for you. That objective is 3 red beads per worker per shift. We're confident now that you understand the objective, the goals of management, that you will be able to meet this objective. Remember, your jobs are contingent upon your performance. Indeed, the continuation of the company is contingent upon your performance. So please do your best to meet this goal.
I'm very pleased. We now understand the goal is 3 or less red beads per worker. Do you want, we were keeping all these numbers, but we didn't have a goal. Very important to have a goal. So the goal is 3 or less. Visualize 3. Very good. So we are now set and primed for our second day of work. Now with our fine experience and our goal of 3, we should do great things today. Willing worker number 1, come on forward, follow your procedure. Did we get out of order here?
Can I ask any questions at this point?
What kind of question do you have? I guess you don't have a question. So follow the procedure and use the beads.
The main thing was I couldn't touch the beads.
Right. Cannot. That's why we have the paddle. Cannot touch the beads. Untouched by human hands. Cannot touch the beads. And you don't need a pen, so put that away.
I can't use a pen?
There's no need for a pen. There's no pen in the procedure. There's no pen in the procedure. Just go forward. You've been trained. We have the procedure. Yep. Go forward. No. You follow the procedure. There's an extra copy right here. And keep up our productivity. You're delaying us here.
What do you guys think? Poor Kurt there. And I thought I was going to get stabbed. I have to admit, I was waiting for him to take that pen out and stab me. So we'll go on to another person here. I thought you said somebody else was trying him last time. So I'd like somebody to talk about, well, what is Kurt actually trying to do and what happened? Do you suppose any employee will ever make a suggestion ever again? And what do you think? And remember, Kurt was the worker of the day on day 1, by the by. And do you predict success? So anybody got some thoughts on these questions?
Yeah, while we're waiting for a hand to go up or somebody to unmute, Christine commented that I think she's right on target, that the company is not willing to take suggestions for improvement because
how could that be? Yeah, how could that be?
And Cameron, you're unmuted again.
Yeah, I would like rather take a even further high level approach. The company does not have a capability to think, right from the president. So not capable to take the feedback is the next level. They are right from the top, not designed to think straight, right, when they introduce the goal.
Oh, absolutely correct. Anybody want to give a prediction of, is this company going to succeed or fail, and why or why not?
Let's do it. People, feel free to chat into the chat box about that too. Will they succeed or fail? I just love that they created the appropriate slogans.
Oh, by the way, those graphics are amazing. They do come from Dr. Deming's book, The New Economics, and they're very basic graphics. We gave them to the IT graphics department. Oh, they made such beautiful cardboard backed posters. I mean, they were a work of art. Somebody took actually took those posters very seriously when they made them.
Yeah. And you're starting to get a lot of chats into the chat box here.
Oh, good.
Will fail because there's no room for creativity. They'll fail, but the slogans really inspire me. There might be some success in some areas, and and failure in others. But interesting point, Steve, I think, so I'll tee that one up to you, that it's probably all by chance rather than by design.
So far by chance, and we're noticing nobody has made the goal of 3, have they? So that might be telling us maybe this process has got some difficulties, but so far it's hard to tell that from the view graph that's got the numerical results. So very good conversations. Well, let's move on here. Okay, in fact, here's the view graph. So we've done 3 days, and oh, poor Debbie, she tried to do something not in the procedure, and she was fired. And I could show you the video. She screams all the way back to the seat, "You can't fire me, I quit." I'm not sure if that's in the video, but this is kind of where we're at. I don't see any 3s. Okay, I'm going to stop the share. Let me see. Wait a minute. I'm trying to get these to go a little smoother, but I'm not having much luck. Here we go. And then I've got to get back here. Let's pause that. This will go well better. And now I can share screen again. Yeah, in WebEx, I have to admit, you can just share your desktop and it will not have all these transition problems, but oh well.
Okay, Ken, it is your shift now. Okay, up 4 inches, 47 degrees forward, onwards to QA. Not much expectation here, but...
11.
Oh, yes, Ken, back to 11. My probationary worker. Sid, my cleanup man, my worker of the day the first day. Let's see, I'm expecting great things from you, Sid. Up 4 inches and 47 degrees forward and on to QA. Onwards, onwards. You haven't been dismissed yet.
9, dismissed.
9. Well, consistent, I suppose. So I don't understand this. Tom, you can get 4. You got 4, but look at your co-workers. 2 11s up there.
Isn't that interesting? All right. So, as I say, Debbie got fired. Tom was a replacement scab worker and immediately gets a 4. All kind of interesting, isn't it? Now, as we're looking at this, we can kind of look back and say, well, what's been going on these 3 days? Now, this is a very typical graphic that companies will use. Okay, in the first quarter, here were the results. In the second quarter, here were the results. In the third quarter, here were the results. And we do some sort of moving average or that. And I put a little timeline over to the right-hand side on the slide that noted, you know, who was the worker of the day, who was put on probation. After 2 days, we announced a bonus for 3. By the way, there was we put $20 on the table if you got it 3. And of course, we got a 4. And what we've told the people is we're going to do appraisals. And, you know, all very typical. Everybody's going to get judged on their problems. And what I'm going to do is shift this over to an Excel file, my favorite tool. I do a lot of work in Excel here. Let me just verify, Dean, this is showing the Excel, right?
You are showing the
It's the same as the slide, but like if I go to data, do you see the data?
Yes.
Okay, good. We're on the Excel slide. So what we have is I brought over this, and instead of a view graph and we had a calculator and that, I actually pulled this over into Excel. And here's a very typical chart that people will make. Number of defects is a bar chart. I am sure if I went to many of your places of work and looked at if you had a visual workplace and had charts on the wall, I suspect you would see charts like this, right? Does somebody want to actually own up to that or make a comment on this chart as being very typical?
Yeah, I can't see anybody, Steve, but I bet everybody's nodding their heads.
I am sure.
That one rings pretty true.
Yeah. So one of the things that's interesting is a Deming consultant told this story. He went to help a shoe manufacturer, and they had a very similar chart on the wall, a number of defects per day, and it would kind of look like this. And the vice president of production said, "I know exactly what's going on." So the consultant, after nobody questioned the vice president, said, "Sir," I think he may have asked this after the meeting. "So, sir, what is going on?" And the vice president scratched his head and went, "Well, some days are better than others." Not terribly useful. Well, I can at least connect the dots here. So now I've got what they call a run chart in quality assurance terms. I've connected the dots. And in fact, Dr. Deming would say, and I'll have to check with my father if I can get the gravelly voice, "It's so simple, just plot the dots." Anyway, a lot of folks use moving averages. I shouldn't say moving range. It's actually a moving average. I'm so used to moving ranges. Let me fix that. Well, there's a defect. So here's a moving average. And okay, it smooths out the data. And I've taught MBA classes before. And, MBAs learn all about moving averages. And we're getting so much better here. Our moving averages coming down, right? Anybody want to weigh in? Does this look like we're getting better?
Cameron, what do you think?
No, it's that's whenever you see the moving averages smoothen out, some of those days are worst. For example, the day 3 to 4.
Yes, good point. And I will point out, a lot of people say, "Oh, put on a linear regression curve." Well, because of that rather odd result of 4, the linear regression will also be decreasing. I shouldn't say linear regression, it's a least squares fit. I plot a line just like, USA Today does. Here we go, a rainbow chart. This is the balanced scorecard and all that. This is just wonderful. Okay, so what I'm going to do, well, we've established a goal of 3. So anything less than 3 or less is green. Anything between 3 and, let's say 10 is yellow, and above 10 is red. Okay, this makes it very easy to interpret. Okay, I've had 2 reds in the past, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 results. I must be getting worse. Right? Someone other Cameron weigh in at this point. I'm not going to, but yes, Cameron's doing a great job, but I want to share the wealth here. So anybody want to comment on me saying we're getting worse because got 2 reds in the past 5 results?
Let's see if we get it. Well, we got Robert Prevette, who's unmuted.
Yeah, okay. I'll do a little family tie here. Hey, Dad.
Don't pick up the trend there.
Good. I think he's chanting a little Deming there too. So just slapping some arbitrary lines on a chart like this and call you red, yellow, green will make things worse. People, and Deming talks about a lot in his books, Out of the Crisis and the New Economics, that, you slap up these red and green charts, what does it do for the workers? Not much. I know that there's a big thing about indexes. Over the years, somebody said, "Well, give me the health of the company in one number." So I have a slide in other presentations. I go, the health of the company is 8.3. A big billboard in front of the plant. The health of the company is 8.3. And then I ask the question, so I'm a worker coming to the plant. The health of the plant is 8.3. What do I do now? Turn around and go home? Meaningless number. So now we can start adding some meaning to it. Dr. Schuhart actually came up with this 100 years ago. We're coming up on 100 years ago since Dr. Schuhart's Economic Control of Quality Product. Now, he made these things with a slide rule and adding machine, a pencil, and a piece of graph paper. Now we have Excel to do it. Yeah, and Minitab and all sorts of other programs out there. So what I've done is taken the 18 results we've done so far and just taken the average of them and seeing, hey, I got an average of about 9 red beads. And, an amazing thing I hope everybody takes home from here is, well, half the stuff is above average and half the stuff's below average. Yay! It still doesn't tell us much, although our average is so far above the goal. Now, here comes the insight. This is the slide of the presentation, as we're about halfway into this, is that we are going to add something that Dr. Short came up with, which is some alarm values, like your smoke detector in your house. There's a setting in it for what's an unusual level of dust in the air, if it's a particulate detector, or carbon monoxide, if it's a carbon monoxide detector, et cetera, et cetera. By the way, as a nuclear person, remember you got to change your smoke detectors out after 10 years because the radioactive element that passes through the dust has basically dissipated after 10 years. But Dr. Schuhart said, let's come up with some limits. And in his book, and this is empirical, he said 3 standard deviations appears to be a pretty good limit. So in this case, I calculated 3 standard deviations of the average. I actually took the square root of the average because we're counting things, which works well with Poisson. I won't get into that. I'll leave that to my college students. But what I'm saying is based on the numbers, not the goal, not what management wants, the data is speaking to us. The data are, I get about 9 red beads. I'll get 0, maybe slightly on occasion because the 3 standard deviations is a hair below 0. And I'm not going to get anything 18 or above, very unlikely. So I'm somewhere between 0 and 18 when I pull these beads. And so I can talk about this looks to be stable. I don't exceed the control limits, and we'll talk about some more rules like 7 points in a row above average or below average. So actually, as Cameron pointed out, all this turned out to be random noise, and this chart proves everything that's been happening so far is random noise, and further, it's stable. It's not going anywhere. So we'll talk more about the implications of that as we go on. And in fact, just to add a little more clarity to the chart, I can remind folks, oh, here's my goal of 3 red beads. Well, it's within the control limit, but this looks to be about the 2 standard deviation level, which means, I got less than probably a 3% chance of getting 3 red beads or less. By the way, that's happened to me 4 times in presentations. And another cultural thing is this. Everybody gave me back their $20. And I said, no, really, you earned it. You got the 3 red beads. So this is a discussion point too. So why did all 4 people give me back their $20 that they dutifully earned? Very interesting. So there's some thoughts there. Let's go back to our PowerPoint. Here we are. We'll move on to the next slide. So we've got some interpretation of the data at this point. There was that final chart that said, okay, my average is up here, my data is up here, there's the goal, and here's my risk levels. This is my smoke alarm levels to say something's changing. So what have we learned? The process is stable and predictable. The process is not capable of meeting the goal of 3, but we held everybody to a rigorous procedure. And well, what about Kurt? So we're going to take a little break here. I believe we're set to go into teams. So as we're moving into the final stages here, and in fact, you see our president is mulling over an idea for the 4th day, which we'll see what's happening. But this is human performance, root cause, and trending. So why do you think the company is failing to date? What's the root cause? What do you think they should do? And in each team, kind of come back and give us a little briefing. Are you guys set to do that?
Yeah, and what I will do, so everybody has the questions, right?
Yeah, let me put it back up just so people are mulling it over here.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay.
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'm going to break you up into just 4 random breakout groups. And Steve, what do you think? Make this kind of a lightning round, like 7 or 8 minutes.
Yeah, keep it short here, but yeah, give people, hopefully it doesn't take that long to see what's going on, but what should they do is the interesting question. So yeah, 7 or 8 minutes is good with me. Yes, I should just answer the question.
Yeah, I'll put everybody into the breakout rooms, just go in there and talk about what should the company do, key observations. If you have questions, there's a little button like ask for moderator, I think it is. And if you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, we'll see you back here in 5 or 6 minutes, and I'll cue you in with a broadcast message about how much time you have left. And for those of you who have not joined your breakout room yet, please go ahead. You should have that option to move into a room. But it looks like most people are in.
Hey, Dean, I think on the, when Steve goes and shares his screen, I think there is a share all screens option in there. It's just, I don't think it's obvious, but I cannot remember where it would be located at. So
I wonder,
it might be.
Yeah, let me take a look.
Or share all windows.
Maybe it's that, or desktop, or
I'm trying to remember. I know it's on there because I've used it before. Sometimes it's in different, it's presented in different places. And sometimes if you've got a lot of windows already open, you've got to scroll down to find that choice. I'm just trying to remember the title of it.
Yeah, on a Mac, John, it comes up as desktop. I've literally never tried to do that. I would assume it's doing what we're thinking, any active window is going to come to the front. But maybe it behaves differently on a Mac or in a PC or something.
I'm just trying to take a look. On my Windows machine, now I think this may have been before I added a second monitor.
Okay.
It might be that it doesn't allow me to do that. If you've got two monitors going, I know that that I remember seeing it before, just one monitor. So it may have something to do with that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting that did not function the way we all expected it to.
Right.
But all good. Thank you.
You bet.
So surviving life, John, busy bunch of work for you going on right now,
huh? Right now, it really is, Dean. I have done quite a few learning teams here in the month of May, and some after action reviews, which is a kind of a tool we're trying to encourage use of in Luminant. It's another type of organizational learning, type of operational learning, and so yeah, I've been pretty involved with that. Things are starting to. We're starting to see a lot more events and everything, and people needing help. I think it's some now just hey, we can move a little bit more. We can send people to different places a little easier, and so people are saying, hey, we want to learn about what went on here. Can you come and help us? So we're seeing a lot of that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, hopefully the positive part of that is outweighing the corollary, which is there's more stuff going on to take a look at.
Yeah, I mean, it's really been encouraging that people are more. I want to say between in the last maybe 10 years, yeah, our reporting has really gone way up, and you think it would be a scary type of deal, but then what we're finding is that people are willing to report what may be seen on the surface insignificant, and but it's good to know. It tells us something. And like I say, so
that is a very good thing.
We've got a lot of people in my group they're going out. They're either doing it on site or virtually, and you know, and it's just a lot different. I guess we're talking about what Steve was talking about early on, culture. It's a lot different culture than it was back in 10 years ago, at least 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I guess slow and steady wins the race in this instance here. So I guess it's, from my aspect, it's good for business, but at the same time, it's almost like we're having to have traffic control to send us different places and do different things. So,
yeah, exactly. All right, I'll give everybody, give them the 1 minute warning.
Oh, say our group only had 4 people in it.
Yeah, so some people
didn't accept to go to the breakout room.
Right.
Oh, well.
Yeah. And I think there's one that only had 2 because a couple people opted out. But
well, they're lost, not ours.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll mute again.
They're coming back in.
Oh, do you want me to put the slide back up?
Yeah, if you would, please. It takes about a minute or so to bring people back from the breakout rooms.
Okay, there's the slide.
Great. And as people are coming back in, I'll start to give the little disclaimer about it was all random. And some groups may have been smaller, some may have been bigger, but regardless, I appreciate everybody taking advantage of that opportunity to do some smaller group collaboration. And I really like that feature of Zoom. Being able to put people into breakout rooms, it does work really, really nicely. Although it can be a little bit clunky with how people are assigned.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we shall see what people have to say.
Yeah. And we have, looks like everybody's back. So everybody, thank you for taking the time in the breakout groups. Some were smaller, some were bigger, but regardless, good opportunity to do some small group collaboration. So Steve, do you want to volunteer from each group, or how do you want to talk about this?
Well, I made sure my group had a volunteer, but maybe we can start with my group, who that person knows who they are, to volunteer right now to start.
Jessica,
yes.
That's you.
It was me. I love getting volunteered for things like this.
Hey, Jessica.
At 8 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast. No, it's all right. So what was the root cause? What was causing this? We discussed that a culture had been established where people were unwilling to step forward and make suggestions because it was made very clear that no suggestions would be welcome, because there were very smart people that created this system and this process, and we're just lowly workers and are not smart enough to make suggestions of that to improve the process. Ultimately, the direct cause, and I was handed this on a lovely plate, was the fact that there are red beads in the bucket. So no matter what we do, the root cause is that there are red beads in the bucket, and nothing we can do will eliminate that so that we can reach our goal.
Okay.
All right, Dane, I was on one of the teams, and I will be spokesperson.
Brilliant. Thank you, Bob.
And from our team's standpoint, I guess it all equated down to, my love for root cause. We're getting down to the systemic stuff of less than adequate system design. The system is designing perfectly for what it's doing. So your creativity and innovation was a deviation from the procedure. So therefore, I kept coming back to human robot, is because I'll get my jollies somewhere else for my creativity and innovation, but I'll come to work and be this human robot and get your check and be creative after 5.
Very cool. All right, Bob, Jessica, thank you. Okay, volunteer from one of the other groups. There's got to be one. Oh, Cameron, you're unmuted. Are you the volunteer from your group?
Yeah, I'm volunteer and voluntold both. We did we did a simple 5 why practice in the root cause analysis. So, the first is the unrealistic goal. Why is an unrealistic goal? Because the people who are setting the goal, they don't know the process. Why do they do not know the process? Because they do not know how to calculate process capability. Why they do not know the process capability? Because they are not trained. They do not have a sense of that. So that is the one path of the root cause. If you like to elaborate further on the can they able to achieve the goal, then it's a different path. So we didn't explore that one, but what we explore is the goal was unrealistic because they were not trained to analyze the process from the process statistical point of view.
Okay. These are all very good conclusions, which I want people to keep in mind as we go forward.
And Brian, you are unmuted, so you must be the last volunteer.
Brian, I believe so. Robert and I were grouped together, and I think Jessica, Cameron, Robert really hit on a lot of the root cause points and why this thing is failing. One of the things that we came up with, and it tags on what kind of has already been mentioned, is the idea of maybe empowering the employees to set the goal. So that way they can both creatively come up with solutions of how to try and find what a goal should be, and then also come up with their own process improvements because they're much closer to the ground. So this way they can see where obstacles are that are impeding them from achieving that goal, and then management can work with them in a non-punitive way to try and get that goal to be raised to whatever management feels they need. So obviously, if the worker says the goal should be 1 or none, that's not realistic. And if management says it should be 10,000, that's not realistic. So starting with the worker to try and have them set the goal, and then trying to look and see what reason are they not meeting the goal. Are they giving a lot of people the day off so they can't meet whatever goal they need for whatever throughput? But that's kind of what Robert and I came up with, in addition to what's already been said.
Okay, well,
I was very impressed that Brian has continued and has done this practice that he talked about in his own career and his own business activities with his people. So he's a real believer, and those are his real experiences. I was very impressed to be with Brian. I thank him for that.
Thank you. Okay.
And you should be getting that check pretty soon, Bob. Don't worry.
And he'll share it with his son. So this is fascinating. So consider what you've said, and we're going to revisit some of these. So I heard some interesting things about the workers should set the goal, and sounds like, oh, there's red beads in the bucket and we can't do much about that. That's kind of some takeaways. So let's go ahead and see what our heroes did. Okay. So let's see what they did and what their plan is. As I say, I've got to get this. Let me, I got to hit that. I'll bring the tape back as we need. Okay, here we go. So this is our debrief for the third day. And what's the plan to save the company?
The audio is not playing, or it's super low, Steve.
Oh, okay. Let me fix that. Let me see here. Increase. Now, maybe I lost the, come on, audio. There we go. Increase. Let's try this volume. Tell me how that's sounding. Is that better?
Still nothing.
Still nothing. Okay, let me stop the share, double check my share. Oh, the share sound is, oh, that's because we went into the room. It turned off my share sound.
Oh, sorry about that.
Not a problem. An interesting system issue, though, isn't it? It's not my fault. It's a system. Here we go.
Mr. President, we completed the third day of production with our goals in place and our monetary bonus in place and still there on the table. 49 red beads, a fine improvement.
I agree with you that it is an improvement, but I don't think it's sufficient. Our customers are still not satisfied with the number of defective product that we have been sending them. But management, of course, has got a solution to this dilemma as well. I would ask you to please rank the workers and identify for me those that are above average. We apparently made a mistake when we hired some of these workers. Not all of them are above average. Let me know when you have the ranking.
Now, you see, we give you feedback. This is performance appraisal time. Nothing could be more fair. This is your performance for everybody to see, all our stockholders in the world. They see your performance. We've ranked you from top to bottom. We notice that there is an average here. You three are above average. You three are below average. That is duly recorded. Mr. President, we have completed our performance appraisal process.
Thank you, and management has reviewed these results, and the decision that we have made is to go forward with a prediction that our best workers will be the ones to rely upon in the future. Therefore, would like you to dismiss the 3 not best workers. You may give them their severance pay. Now, going forward, we are in dire straits as a company. It is going to be very important to us to continue this improving trend. We predict that the best workers that we have kept on are going to help us do that. We would like to work them double shifts on the following day.
I hear a few laughs. Okay. Is that about what people expected to hear? Remember Chainsaw Al and fire the bottom 10%? Now, who thinks this plan's going to succeed?
If anybody wants to raise a hand and...
Yeah, even if you think it's not going to succeed, raise your hand, please. Audience participation is mandatory.
Hey, Brian, you're unmuted. You jumped right in. What do you think?
Yeah, I think not a chance. I think not a chance. As a matter of fact, I think you're going to see people, and I've done more government work than private industry, but I think this will be something that will lead to people bleeding the company. Because if you are a worker that's really good at what you're doing, they're going to basically throw much more work on you. And if you're not, you're going to be in the squeeze of what do you do? So the good workers are going to leave and the bad workers are going to leave, and mediocrity is going to take over and the whole place becomes Lake Wobegon.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, let's move on here. So I keep my best workers and... Okay, stop share, flip us over to the new share. There we go.
Forward,
Here we go.
Okay, up, forward, I kept my best workers and... Yeah, we're just trying to record here. I got to make these beads and get them out the door. Just put them down there. Now, you're not dismissed yet. We're slipping here. 13. Well, please total up the number of beads for the day. 29, 38, 42, something like that. 57. Are you serious? 57?
You got me on the wrong way.
57.
Roster, you got me down.
It doesn't matter. 57. I don't, because we kept our best workers, and I had my worst day yet, so nothing more from you. Mr. President, we completed our 4th day of work with our best workers, and we had 57 red beads, our worst day to date.
Well, all I can say is that the management team is stunned and disappointed. This is certainly not what we thought would happen, keeping our best above average workers. We have bet the company on this contract, and so because it has been canceled because of our poor performance, I'll ask you to please dismiss the remaining workers as well as the QA team, the recorder, and so on. We're closed for business.
Here's your...
Oh, well, we're closed for business. Or closed from business. Had our worst day yet. Well, let's take a look here at our Excel file as to where we stand. Let's see here. Where is my, whoops, show all. Oh, wait a minute. I need my Excel file too. Sorry. Wait a minute, let's get back here. Let's just open that. Here we go. Does that show up right now as an Excel file yet, or do I need to shift over the share?
You're going to have to shift over the share.
Okay,
It's still a
I do
blank
have to,
screen.
yeah, okay, got it. Not a problem. Excel file 2. Okay, here we are. So I've added some more data. There's our screenshot of the screen. Yep, we went 56, 56, 49. Boy, we thought we were getting better. And then we're at 57, the worst day yet. Oh, my word. Okay, so what's the chart say, though? If we look at our control chart instead of the table, oddly enough, somebody got another 4, but this 16 is what, well, this is the normal analysis. Somebody go, oh, we had this horrible result, this 16. I mean, we got the 4, but, you know, if it wasn't for the 16, we'd have gotten better. Well, we still didn't get anybody below 3. By the way, I want to tell you a quick story that really happened in a red bead experiment I did. There was a guy who very quickly determined the only way to succeed was to get fired. He did everything he could do to get me to fire him, and I knew what he was doing, so I refused to fire him, even though he spilled beads, did everything else. And so we went through the experiment that way. We took a break before the debrief, and this bunch of people came up who apparently knew him and said, we got to apologize for him. He embarrasses us all the time at presentations. I'm like, well, what do you mean? I said, look, he's the only one who got it. He's the one who realized you can't win. He was doing exactly what it should, for his best interest. Why did you guys not understand that? So, yeah, I don't know if I was that cruel with the people who were trying to apologize for him, but I'm like, what do you mean? He's the only person who knew what was going on. Okay. Now, let's see here. Let's go on to the next slide. So there's where we're stand here. We never did hit the goal of 3. We did get the 16 and, so there we go. Now, by the way, whoops. Sorry. I do want to talk about something here. So remember, you guys did a root cause analysis and you said what we should do, and you guys missed something. You know what it is? Anybody want to guess what you missed about what we should do? I'm probing you guys. Somebody come up with this illuminating result. What should we have done?
See if we get any volunteers to jump in there.
Improve the process.
True. By
Cameron,
what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned that in my root cause analysis that first of all, the people who are setting up the goal, they do not have an understanding of the process capability of that process. The process inherent has a different capability or CPK, whatever you like to call it, versus the goal, which is far off from it. If you like to get the goal close to the process capability, that is going to be a realistic approach. But may customer want to reject it, then the goal is so far off, you need to redesign the process and then do the tests and trials in order to meet the goal.
Okay, you're exactly correct, but everybody is missing the big picture.
Hold on 1 second.
Okay, one more time. Okay, I'm not going to give the answer yet. Everybody is missing what's right in front of them.
2 more hands up. Lois Quinn, your hand was up for a second and then you were muted. What do you think?
Take the wrong beads back out of the process and only give them the ones that work.
Get rid of the red beads. Yes.
I was going to make a comment that the goal was focused around the red beads not getting to the customer, not the generation of red beads from the process.
Right. Now, the other thing, so Dr. Deming does at this point talk about, do you suppose we could have sold the red beads to somebody who needed red beads?
Those who had a poor quality control system. Yeah.
Well,
sure.
no. What makes the red bead defective? Here's a basic question also people don't ask. Why is the red bead defective? If these were ball bearings, does it matter if they're red or white?
Maybe your customer requirements.
Well, how do you know how do you know as the audience members that red beads are defective?
It was presumed that they didn't meet a customer spec, so they went back into the system.
Well, do you remember at the very first video I said, we have to make white beads for the government. We don't know what they use them for. What is telling about that statement?
Is that you could sell them to somebody else who was not the government.
True. Or do we really know who's the expert in the process, the customer or the producer?
the producer in their process.
Right. So if I don't know what the customer does with my product, how do I know I'm giving the right product?
I would think through a specification that was delivered to the process.
True. But if we did talk to the customer and determine, oh, we're just using it for ball bearings, but we really don't like the color red. You know, something like that. You could work with the customer to say, can you use these red beads? Or again, we could sell it to somebody else. So I'm just saying some of the simple answers are right in front of you. Get rid of the beads. And also, why was the bead defective? What was it about the bead that made it defective? Maybe there is something about the red is weighs differently than the white or something like that. But sometimes we get ahead of ourselves and don't ask basic questions like, why is this defect a defect? And basically, how do I get rid of the defects? Now, in this case, it's a very simplistic answer. Get rid of the red beads.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do I really want to change the goal? Do I want the workers to really come up? Oh, yeah, 4 is okay. We would still been fired if we changed the goal to 4. Right?
Yep. Yes.
So here's the basic understanding is saying, well, what exactly is going, yes, we can in general say improve the process, but now we have to, this is a simplistic process that you all saw enough that said, well, why the heck don't we just get rid of the beads? So I'm going to move us ahead because we've had the discussion, but from a technical perspective, so this is a process that is not capable as is of meeting the goal because it has these red beads that will go ahead with their defective. Okay, fine. We talk to the customer. Yep, really, their red beads are bad. And right now it's stable because, we've just done the process over and over again. And by the way, I'll let somebody say, what's the definition of insanity?
Doing it over and over again with a different result.
And expecting a different result. Yes, exactly.
Expecting a different.
Okay, so now this is normally where the experiment ends, but we're going to continue on. We're going to go beyond the beads. So I can talk about categorizing a process. Are we achieving the goal and are we getting worse? Are we not achieving the goal and getting worse? That's declining. Are we stable in achieving the goal, which is really where we want to be? Basically, here we're stable, not achieving the goal, which is just, yes, we're being insane. And well, by the way, improving, not achieving the goal, at least would be a step forward. And even better is improving and achieving the goal. So this is kind of my dissection table here. Which of these 6 states are we in? And somebody sounds like they want to say something. No?
Well,
okay.
Cameron's unmuted, but I think that might be from earlier.
Oh, well,
okay.
If you want, I can able to say that the process is stable, but it's not going to be, we are not going to achieve the goal.
Right. So there's 6 states for every process, which are in this little diagram. Okay. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm going to apply some colors. So there is an advantage to color coding things because it gets management's attention. It delivers a very strict message. But instead of going against arbitrary targets, if we are declining, even if we're achieving the goal, we're going to be red because if we're heading the wrong direction, we're going to eventually be the wrong side of the goal. So we might as well do something now. So that's the advantage of statistical trending. I'll declare ourselves red. We need to do something now. If we're stable in achieving the goal, okay, we're green. If we're improving, we're green. So even if we're not achieving the goal but improving, let's call ourselves green. We're making progress. And again, right now we're sitting at, by this definition, yellow. So this is the color coding system that I've put in place for a lot of places: Chalk River, Ontario, Savannah Riverside, Hanford. Actually, Schlumberger Corporation hired me away for a week to set up a process for them in the petroleum industry. So this is a really different way of perceiving red, yellow, and green, by the by. Okay, so we've got our control chart that we had. Now we're going to say this is yellow. I had to find a really nice stoplight diagram to use. That's very important. But we are basically, this is the statement: we are stable and unacceptable. So here we are. So yes, we got the usual result. We ended in failure and frustration. And, you know, we always talk about the control chart and the stability of the process. But here we go. This is kind of where the debrief goes to the experiment and what I kind of brought you to. A primary tool in safety is removal of the hazard. Remove the red beads. And in fact, a lot of people who go through this experiment have that phrase they use, remove the red beads. And oh, by the way, somebody did correctly state the workers know the process is broken. And by the way, I have a lot of managers who tell me the workers will never understand statistical process control. And I will tell you, every worker in a process, union or non-union, that I go to and work with, especially shop stewards, and go, look, this is the control chart of your results. They go, exactly, that's what we've been trying to tell management. So it's kind of an interesting culture thing. So let's say we remove 3/4 of the red beads. And I'm going to, as an operations researcher, I'm going to make a little simulation here. Sometimes I actually will remove the beads from the bucket. And by the way, to tell if we're getting better, this is one of the set of statistical process control rules. They do vary. Like if you use Minitab, instead of 7 points below average, they use 9. If you like Dr. Wheeler, he uses 8. There's some variation between 7 and 9. I've never seen less than 7 points in a row below average as a trend. I've never seen more than 9. A lot depends on your risk profile. But here what we have is I can detect a big shift in a short period of time, at one point exceeding 3 standard deviation, somewhere in between at 2 out of 3 and 4 out of 5, or simply be on the same side of the average line, 7 points in a row as a trend. So this is what we're going to use to tell, did the process improve? All right. And we're going to bring back Kurt, my dear friend Kurt, who is going to stab me with his pen. And we're going to give him 5 minutes to remove as many red beads as he can. And we're going to assume Kurt was able to get rid of 75% of the beads. So I'm going to shift over to the Excel file here that simulates this. Here we go. So I actually built, and there's actually a random number generator, and I won't get into a lot of this, but I actually figured out cumulative probabilities and used the random number generator to simulate this. Now, I should say Dr. Deming may be rolling over in his grave right now because I'm using an electronic process to simulate a mechanical process. Now, the beads were mechanical. The average should have been 10 by the bead count, but there must have been something mechanically different between the red and the white. So Dr. Deming would always talk about mechanical sampling versus electronic sampling. So I do want to honor the dear doctor. And if I do run the beads for another day, day 5, oh, I'm sorry, I reduced the beads by 75%. Let me change that. And so we had a process change, and yeah, we actually got some 3s in that simulation from the random number generator. We actually do see we have a 7 in a row below average if we count the lucky result from the previous process, but here we got 6 below average. So I also come in here and I'm going to put in my standard deviation lines, and I see even further without including that point, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a row that are 1 standard deviation below average. So I got my 4 out of 5, plus another rule was 2 out of 3 at 2 standard deviations below average. So I got 2 out of 3 there, I got 2 there, I got 2 there, I got 2 there. So those rules that I showed you in that visualization of the trend rules says that this is a statistically significant improvement in the process. So we can talk about process improvement. We had to make the connection of I need to physically remove those beads. And sometimes when I do a 2-day conference, I actually come back the second day and overnight I've removed, half to 3/4 of the beads. And we go, well, let's see, I made a process change. Let's see what happens. So now I'm going to circle these points and tell management we have an improving trend. And since we have an improving trend, we are green. Now, we may not have hit 3 every single time, but we sure got better. And this sounds like it's a pretty good path forward. Okay. Here we go. Let's take a look here. Where are we at? Where are we at? Here, share. So we gave him not only his pen, but we allowed him to, and we got an improving trend. So we're green. Hey, we have imparted momentum in the right direction. And now we'll do another day to verify improvement, just to be sure it wasn't random chance. And so I usually wait a period of time to see if the data are stable so we can make a new prediction of future performance. And then we'll see if we're stable achieving the goal or not achieving it. And I did want to bring up the standard Plan, Do, Study, Act. So we planned the change. We brought in Kurt and said, hey, Kurt, why don't you get rid of the red beads? So Kurt did the do. We've studied the results, and so far it looks pretty darn good that we got a significant improving trend. So now we're going to act and say, well, this is the new procedure. We always have Kurt remove the red beads. Well, we may learn a little bit more about, well, how do we not have Kurt have to remove them? But we have at least imparted momentum in the correct direction. So let's take a look at another day of simulation. I got to pull that file up. Wait a minute. Sorry about that. Wait a minute. Let's go back here so I can pull it up. There. I got to get the file open. Come on. Give me an open file. There we go. Stop share. And we'll get Excel file 4. There it is. So I did my simulation as a good operations researcher, maybe not so good from Dr. Deming's perspective. I should have done it mechanically. But here's our chart. So we've gone the next day, and boy, we're hitting 3s, 0s, and 1s really good. We have that one little 4 out there. So I'm going to do again like I did before. I'm going to calculate the average of the data. I'm going to calculate the 3 standard deviations and see where we're at. And that's the simulation for it. And here we are. Okay, on my average at least is below 3. Now, of course, we don't want to promise the average. Remember when, let's say, Domino's promised 30-minute deliveries, that wasn't 30 minutes on the average, that was probably 30 minutes worst case. So we see that as we look at this, and especially for the Six Sigma black belts out there, or people like Six Sigma, yeah, I got the average below 3, but I really might want to keep going to bring the upper control limit down to 3. But let us say the company's got bigger problems elsewhere. So for now, we're going to say this, we got at least the average below 3, and we're stable with that average achieving the goal. So life is good, we're green. And we'll move on to some other bigger problems. Okay. So let's move on to, I just do want to demonstrate how this, okay, stable achieving the goal. Okay, a little bit of discussion here. So we've achieved some success to date. How should we, I kind of alluded to this, how should we continue the success? What about Kurt? Is Kurt the only one who can remove the red beads? At least he was the one who wanted to. And let's talk about how can we, in our remaining time, a little bit about leading indicators. So how could we have had the workers tell us, hey, boss, there's just too many red beads here? Yeah, so some thoughts.
Let's see if anybody wants to offer some feedback here.
We could have asked the workers, Stephen.
Oh, yeah. We're going to ask the workers. Of course, you know, the workers have said there's too many red beads, and we did employ Kurt to remove red beads. But what about the next incoming bead supply?
Well, Robert Hines, your hand is up. What do you think?
Well, there's, you know, making beads isn't a single action process. There's multiple steps in it. So there may be in-process steps in which we might get indications that things are going awry before we get a completed bead and divert them or improve the process.
Oh, definitely. We can subdivide the process. Yes.
I think a lot of this gets back to the mentality and the culture between a proactive and a reactive culture. And that if we had focused on the risk of making red beads instead of how to better respond to making them, that mentality would have prompted people to be more creative and innovative.
Yeah, I love that thought of encouraging people to have that curious and questioning mindset. That's super powerful. And Jessica, your hand's up. What do you think?
Well, why do we have a supplier that continues to supply red dye into our process of making white beads?
Ah, excellent. So supplier quality control, working with your supplier. Deming said, don't don't go with the lowest bidder, work with your suppliers. And he actually said, have one supplier, you know, work with that supplier hand and foot. My father does tell stories about when he sold foundry castings for Ford. Ford came down to the supplier and said, you know, we want you to do certain things. I'll tee that up for Dad.
And Cameron, your hand's up. What do you think?
Yeah, again, I would perhaps go with the higher level of the organization, you know, because they are going to stumble upon some other obstacles in the future, and they may fire some people and learn by test and trial. So main thing is the culture of the organization. The organization needs to have a top-down approach, understanding, you know, the human culture, getting the feedback from the worker, treating people like humans, understanding the voice of the customer, understanding the continuous improvement process, having an idea of quality control, quality assurance. So if we are, literally, we need to teach the senior management, the quality management system, in order for that company to survive. That's simple.
Excellent. Yes, this is all good. Again, we are the HPRCT people, the human performance. So we've kind of had a lot of human performance here. We did do the root cause, and we'll do the trending. Now, I do want to point out, we need to continue to monitor this process to see what happens. Before I move on, is there any other comments from folks?
We've just had Robert Hines, your hand is up, but I think it's up from before. So if I'm wrong about that, let me know. And Jessica's hand keeps going up and down and up and down. So Jessica, I suspect you've got something.
Well, I can't figure out. So I've only ever worked in private industry, and I'm stuck early on. You said, why didn't they have a system that was cost plus in order to make a profit? And that's kind of been sticking with me, is why are we on this system that is so dialed down to the cent, instead of from a business standpoint, covering our own, you know, CYA and having a cost plus system so that we continue to make a profit and allow us to create a better system. That's kind of where I'm stuck. So
right. And in fact, it's a good place to be stuck. Dr. Deming said, obviously nobody gives a hoot about profit. We keep chasing the quarterly income statement. We don't chase long-term profit.
That's a primary difference with the government and private industry as well, is what Jessica just said.
Well, true, but I guess I must have lost my father, so I'll tell my favorite story from him. He worked at a foundry where they were doing a casting that had cooling fins on it. And it was actually a automated, highly technical machine that made the castings. But every time the casting came out, at the end of the process, the cooling fins were broken off. The metallurgist couldn't figure it out. Nobody could figure it out in the office. So my father, who's actually got a foundry background, went and watched a casting be made. So it went through the process, the you know, pouring the metal, the casting comes out, and it goes down to the basement to cool. Well, he goes down to the basement, and along comes a worker with a 15-pound sledgehammer who wangs it into the casting. My father's like, what are you doing? And he says, what I do to every casting, I'm knocking the sand off of it. So where is your guy with the 15-pound sledgehammer, huh?
Yeah. And we have one more hand up. So Cameron, your hand is back up. What do you think? Any closing thoughts on this one? Oh, your hand's down.
No, mine is still up.
Okay.
You know, I have experience working in the commercial organization and the government organization both. And unfortunately, this is not today's training session is unfortunate, is the real life example. Big or corporate organizations, they have the goals, which workers and employees, they do not have control over those goals. Eventually, they are getting bonuses or no, and sometimes they are getting fired, or big plants are being shut down because of the stupid goals the corporate head office set for them, that workers and none of them have any control over. And similar thing is happening with the government organization. It's a culture that is making us backwards. Dr. Deming and Joran, these were the guys who were pioneer in the quality control, quality assurance. And we sort of went backward from, I think 50 years ago, we were more quality oriented than now.
Mm-hmm. That's very good.
Interesting bunch of lessons and insights on everything from employee engagement to how do we frame the right business questions, you know, and to the other point that's come up of, you know, what kind of questioning mindset do we encourage with people in an organization?
Right.
So this has been great stuff, great discussion.
So what I'm going to do, I will say I have a final slide where I just do a simulation, and we do show that.
That's not showing up yet, Steve.
Okay, that's fine. In fact, I think I'm on the wrong thing here. There we are. Share. All right.
There you go.
There. So I just do want to say that I do say, hey, we should keep monitoring this. And I had it generate an adverse trend that blew the upper control limit, the new upper control limit, though that was pretty much the usual thing against the previous process. So I do want to give a few minutes for questions. A few thoughts here is what happened. And one of the things that's a real story, we did Phil Monroe and I did a red beta session at Richland, Washington before this videotape one. And before the thing, you know, we always fiddle around with the beads, and he sucked the paddle in and got 50 white beads. I'm like, that can't be. So we dumped out the paddle, slipped it in, got 50 white beads. And it's like, what is going on? Well, I don't know if people know Eastern Washington. You know, Washington's the evergreen state, but half the state is a desert. And it was a cold, no humidity morning. And there must have been something about that mechanical sampling that in the static electricity that built up, it repelled the red beads and kept the whites. We got from a woman a can of Dress anti-cling and sprayed down the beads and was fine. But notice even an error like that, even if it came up with 100% red beads and go, aha, I could put a static charge on the beads and get all white beads. Oh, there we go. So sometimes there's an accidental improvement. So if that was a real process and we had understood that, we could have employed the, oh, all we got to do is get static electricity, keep the humidity down, and I got white beads. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so this has been a, wait a minute, let me, I've got to get this. Okay, you're seeing my slide here. I'm not showing the slideshow, but that's fine. So concluding here, and I want to take a few questions or comments, but yes, we've used this at many nuclear facilities. I'm training students on this. I will admit my students, they're mostly adult students, but they'd never heard of Dr. Deming, and they get encouraged by all this. Oh, I have a day job. We could do this on our day job. Now, I don't know if I've made a bunch of people going out who are just going to get into trouble with their employers, but you know, there we go. So with that, I will call this to a conclusion and just open up for general answers. Well, general questions, and I will provide at least what input I can. How's that? I thank you all for attending.
See if anybody wants to chat into the chat box or raise a hand for any kind of questions.
Well done, Steve, and pleased to be with you all.
Okay.
Yeah, and as we're waiting, I think, Steve, I really appreciate the time and the energy and wisdom that you put into this, because it has lots of great implications all the way around. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought this was a little different spin on things.
Yeah,
so,
and it's a lot of fun too. So as we're just wrapping up, just a thank you to everybody for taking the time today. Steve, thank you so much for sharing what you know. And I like that you had your slide up there with your contact info. You might want to put that back up.
Oh,
because
yes, I can
do that. Good way to connect with you. And just a reminder for everybody that we'll, from June 22nd to the 24th with our HPRCT virtual conference, we'll be exploring critical decision making, how we frame problems, how we really get at them in a really holistic way to help organizational performance. So give that some thought, because it'll be a great 3 days. And with that, Steve, I do not see any of the questions. So thank you very much. And everybody, thank you for the time.
Excellent.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Thank you very much. Bye.